Mr. Ba, you're welcome. We're just reminding you of your oath. So,
Mr. Ba, you've been summoned with regard to various matters. We will start with CONAPRO. I'm going to show you Exhibit MS-88, which contains a sale agreement, sales contract, said to have been signed by yourself. In 2010. Specifically, what looks like, well, I'll give it to you. It looks like 21st October 2010. Can you give the witness this document, please? Honorable Commissioners. Have you seen the document?
Yes.
Can you tell this commission what that document is all about?
This document is about a sales agreement, a contract with CONAPRO and the Gambia government.
Can you raise your volume a bit, the volume of your voice? Yes, thank you. Who is CONAPRO?
CONAPRO,
and how did you come to be signing that sale contract?
CONAPRO, we got to know about CONAPRO through Ambassador Ansumana Jame, who was our ambassador in Qatar. It was headed by one Saud Gandour and his brother, I can't remember the name, and there was an Italian, I think, with them. They came to State House, had an audience with the president. After the meeting, there are closed-door meetings, you know, Ambassador Jame, the president, and these guys from either Qatar or Beirut, Lebanon, I don't know. But after their meeting, I was called, you know, to come in and answer to the president. When I went in, I found them seated, and I was introduced to them, that these were potential investors who were interested in supplying, you know, Gambia with fuel, and they were also interested in other areas in mining and agriculture. That is how we got to know them. So at that meeting, the president said that, the former president said that these people, we are going to engage them, to provide us with, to supply us with fuel, for our energy sector in Nawe. And they are giving us a good deal, according to him. And we have to work with them right away. Let us call the GNPC guys, Ministry of Petroleum and Ministry of Finance, so that we can meet and then work out the details. But we must enter into an agreement today, so that they can go ahead and work on supplying us fuel. He believed that what was there then, that was the contract with Eagle Company.
By Eagle, you mean Euro-Africa Group Limited? The
Euro-African Group, headed by Mohamed Bazi, that their prices were on the high side, according to him. And these people, I don't know what they discussed and what the terms and conditions were, what they were offering, but he would believe that these people are better. They're going to provide us better prices and quality, so we have to sign with them. And that is why we end up, signing that contract.
Who produced this contract?
The investors, brought in the contract, and it was shown to us at the office of the president that they have a contract. You go out and look at it.
But you said the president said you were to contact Finance and Ministry of Petroleum.
Yes.
Were they involved in this?
Yes, they were.
You got in touch with them?
Yes, they were. They were. Normally when the president meets with somebody, a guest or an investor or whatever, officials are invited to attend, the audience.
Are you saying there was another meeting at which the Ministry of Finance and Petroleum were invited?
That was after the meeting with the president in his office. We went to the cabinet room.
And
we had discussions on what they were to supply, and the quantity they were able to supply, and also the cost of the pricing.
And you're saying Ministry of Finance was present and Petroleum as well?
Yes.
Who from the Ministry of Finance was present?
I believe the Honorable Mamburenjai was there, and GNPC, Mr. Baji, they were there. And I believe Foreign Affairs, then Dr. Tangara was there, and some other officials. I cannot remember all.
So what was what was the process of adopting this agreement? You said it was produced by the investors, and then what after it was produced? Was it in this format? Did you make any changes? Did you work on the document?
It was looked at, it was perused by, those that were present, and it was also sent to the Ministry of Justice hurriedly through the then Solicitor General was Pahari Jame, and was sent to him for review and advice, as it was an urgent issue.
I'm sure you're aware that this agreement became the subject matter of litigation in the United Kingdom. Why wasn't it executed?
Why wasn't it executed?
Yes.
At some point it was found out that what was available then with Eagle Company was cheaper than what they were offering. And there were times Eagle used to pre-finance, shipments and paid 3 or 6 months later. There was an arrangement that, was there. So when it was realized, because they brought in information, the cost of supplying the fuel to the Gambia, and it was compared to what was available. So when that happened, it was relayed to the president that this is the situation, and we believe that we shouldn't go for a higher, cost than what is available. And he agreed to that. And then he said, we talked to them, again. So they were back in, and with Ambassador Jammeh, and it was shown to them, there were proofs that what was available then, was better in terms of pricing. So we told them there was an exclusivity with Eagle Company, and they were to expire some few months later. I think this was around October, and in February the following year, the contract with Eagle was going to expire. So it was, there was this gentleman's agreement that yes, now that this is the case, and we don't really want to hurt the Gambia. We want to partner with you. That is Saud Gandour saying that. We want to partner with the government, and we want a relationship that lasts long, and this is not the only area that we are interested in. So we would understand, your point and your situation, and to prove to you that we are interested in staying, in the Gambia, we would venture into other areas, into agriculture. So we would shelve this contract until after the expiration of the exclusivity with Eagle, then we will come back and renegotiate and talk about it. But meanwhile, we are going to propose that we venture in a joint partnership and get this food and feed mill, going. That is what we had at Kamalo on Banjul-Serekunda Highway. Because the president had said to them that, he has been, spending a lot of money buying animal feed from Senegal. So if this is, possible to be produced in this country, then, that would be a good thing. So they agreed to shelve the contract and then venture into this. And that is when, we had these parastatals that were invited, to come and work with them on a, share basis and have this, constructed and manufacturing started. So why this contract, the issue of this contract came back was when there was this arrangement, parastatals, to pay a certain amount, and them as a company to pay also a certain amount. When the government side was honored, they were paying their dues. At some point, we requested for them to show proof that they have been paying also their shares. They were not willing to provide, that information that was, needed, and therefore the president ordered that there was a company that was asked, a company or the audit office, I don't know, it was SGS and then the audit office to conduct
an audit?
An audit of the site, an audit of what has, been spent on that project. So when there was this insistence of, them providing proof that they have paid, their dues, and they were reluctant to do so, the president issued a threat, for them to be arrested if they cannot, produce that. So it was at that point everybody realized that the funds, Gambian funds, were used to start up this business, and not theirs because they couldn't show what they have put forward. So when there was that threat, that is when they abandoned the place and left the country. So when they left, Ansu was negotiating with them. Ansu Jame, Ambassador Ansu Jame was, talking to them because he was the one who brought them in. So he was talking to them, trying to make sure or trying to ensure that they come back and try to resolve this issue, and try to provide the information that probably the government side needed. So at some point that failed, and I believe that they realized that they were going to have a big problem coming back, without showing that proof. And they would be losing the investments or, the so-called investment that, is out there and the opportunities that were there for them. So I think that is when they returned back, to the contract and then, brought it up, as a means of forcing the Gambia government to negotiate with them or to allow them to come back.
And did you say tore the contract?
Sorry?
Did you say tore the contract? I didn't quite get that. What phrase you used?
Tore? No, I didn't say tore
okay.
the contract.
They went to court. So did they try to negotiate? What did they try to negotiate?
When they went to court?
No, they went to court.
Yes.
That is what is clear, that they went to court.
Yes.
Or arbitration, which ended up in a court
Right.
judgment this year. You're saying they were trying to negotiate to come back.
Yes.
But it doesn't look like they were negotiating to come back. They just took you to arbitration on the sale contract.
When that negotiation failed, they were talking to Ansuman Jamia.
Okay.
And probably when that failed or didn't work out, that's when they went to court.
When this contract was signed in October 2010, by your account, the exclusivity contract with Euro-African Group was in place. How do you reconcile that?
The president said that he was going to terminate. He was going to deal with them, and that is, he was going to terminate the exclusivity that was existing there. And then we were going to work with these people. And when I was moved from the Office of the Secretary General to the Ministry of Work, that was the termination of the exclusivity.
When the contract, when you were discussing, all of you, the institutions that were invited, in terms of pricing, how would pricing become an issue when you had the opportunity to discuss pricing and check what the pricing of the Euro-Africa Group contract was?
How did it work?
Why would pricing become an issue? Because you had a contract with Euro-Africa Group.
Yes.
Surely that the pricing of Euro-Africa Group
was not readily available. That information was not readily available. And it was through, that...
What do you mean?
The information right in front of us that this was the price Euro-African group was, giving, was according the Gambia government. That was not available to...
Wasn't it the case that Ministry of Finance was responsible for...
They were able to provide that information.
Sorry, were they not responsible for the pricing of the euro? Were the Ministry of Finance not responsible for fixing the prices for Euro-Africa group?
I think there is what they call PLAT, a general standard or format of pricing.
Which is published, yes. It's published.
Yes, and I believe that information was available with the Ministry of Finance, negotiating or working with the Eagle Company on pricing.
So why wasn't it readily available? I don't understand. At that meeting that you had to consider what to...
That meeting was called up to attend an audience with some guests that were visiting the president. So a lot of information would not come with them, with officials that were coming. But it was later they went back and I believe, got some information, and then we continued with our meeting. And the pricing, and obviously the pricing became an issue when that was the comparison that was made. And it was found out that, it was found out that this is higher than, what was available.
That, I believe, is what I'm getting at, why such a comparison was not made before, but after the contract was signed. Why was the comparison not made before, but after the contract was signed?
Because the contract was signed when there was this order that it needed to be signed that day. And that's why we had to hurriedly send the contract to Pahari, to look at and advise us.
And he did advise?
Yes.
Was the advice in writing?
That he saw no harm in that.
Was the advice in writing?
No, I don't believe it was in writing, because the file was just sent to him in a folder.
Let's just, on the same contractors, we have this file from the Office of the President, which doesn't really contain much, but I'm going to show it to you. It's PRC 473, Volume 1. And I'd like you to look at Folio 2. Just confirm whether these are the people you are talking about. And can you confirm the gun?
Can I confirm that?
Those are the people you are talking about as the investors?
Yeah, two of them on top, Saud Gandour and Rashad Gandour. Rashad is the brother that I said I couldn't remember him.
And they are Lebanese? They are Lebanese?
Yes.
According to their passport?
Yes, they are Lebanese.
Why was it referred to as a Qatari investment? This whole investment as a matter, yes. Why was it referred to as a Qatari investment?
Probably they stayed there or they lived there. Or it was there that they met with Ansumana Jammeh.
As I said, there isn't much in that file, and you've told us a lot about what happened when they came at the level of the Office of the President. Is there another file that would contain what you described, the discussions that you had? Or were these just merely not, were they minuted, the discussions that you had?
Were they?
Minuted. Were minutes taken?
During, I think the meeting at the cabinet room, probably there might have been minutes, but with their meeting with the president, it was private. It was only them that met.
Why was the second investment regarding the feed mill, why was it structured in the way whereby money had to be paid into the account of the investors by the institutions?
On the feed mill?
Yes.
Why?
It would appear that it was structured in a way whereby money was being paid to the investors, and they were responsible for all, for the construction stage of the project. Were you involved in the structuring of the project? Financing, structuring. Do you understand the question? Why was it that the institutions had to pay the money, their investment to these people, their contribution to?
I believe there was an account that was created for all these payments, including the investors, that should be launched, should be paid lodged there.
You were a signatory to the account.
I don't. This account?
Gambia
no,
Food and Feed.
I'm not too sure.
Very well, we are retrieving the account.
Sure.
Right. So why was it that it was subsequently that you had to find out? I don't understand quite well why an investment would be structured in a way whereby the partners would not be sure that the other party has invested.
Well, it was the arrangement at the beginning. These were people that were brought in, the president's brother, and brought in and met with the president at closed doors. And then later on, we were asked to partner with these institutions, and then this is what was supposed to be paid, and this is what others were supposed to pay. Okay. And then they had to honor that and then made their payments.
Right. My last question, who determined what had to be paid? Was there a business plan presented? Who determined how much and who had to pay what, or what the capital, I suppose?
I believe there was a business plan on this, and that they would own this percentage, and these partners would also own the other percentage.
You believe there was a business plan?
This is the total amount that this project would cost, and if it is 55-45, then they would divide it accordingly, and then the partners would then share which. We
have not been able to find a business plan, and the institutions that have contributed say they were just directed to contribute. They did not see a business plan.
I'm not too sure about that, whether they have seen, and I want to believe yes, they saw something, later on, and I've been moving in and out of that, that office.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before I move on to some other subjects, those are the questions I have. Commissioners may have questions. Can I have the file, please?
Miss, I can go. Yeah. Mr. Ba.
Yes, sir.
What's your professional or academic background?
What is my
professional or academic background?
Public administration.
Good. So, when you attended that meeting with the investors, were you doing it in your capacity as an SG, well placed to participate in investment decisions?
To participate in
investment decisions, from public administration to investment management. You attended the meeting?
Yes, I attended, and that is why there were other institutions or other ministries, that, deal with in that area.
So
like
who from the Ministry of Finance was the technical advisor on that deal? Did you have anybody?
I think that the minister was there, and I think a PS was there.
So who chaired that meeting? Did you, or did the person from the finance or economic?
I chaired that meeting as, the SG and at the office of the president that the meeting was being held.
Okay. So in your capacity as chairman, what did you understand as an investment?
As an investment?
Okay, let me put
came
it
in, investors came in the country. They wanted to put their money somewhere, for the general benefit of all.
How much of that money did they put in?
How much?
Did they put in any money or acquire any property?
Up front?
As investors, at any point, later, in the beginning, in the end, did they put in any?
Towards the end, it was found out that they couldn't produce any evidence to show that they have paid, they have invested money.
But you had the parastatals put in some money first?
Yes.
And the reason for that?
The reason for that was they were asked to pay as their part payment, and the others were going to pay as well.
No. And the reason the investors, the so-called investors, didn't pay or were not pressed to pay is because they represented the president's interest, the ex-president's interest.
I believe so.
So in negotiating with them, you didn't see them as investors. You looked at them as agents of the president. And that's why you couldn't ask them to pay at the same time as the others. If I am wrong, say no or yes.
Not only that, we looked at them as, agents or guests of the president, but we also wanted to believe that they are investors according to what we were told by the brother and by the president, that they are investors and are going to put in money.
But they didn't put in money at any point in time?
No, not at the initial. No, we found out towards the end that they didn't put in money, because that's when we asked them to show proof, and then that's when they left.
So they were not real investors? There was no money committed, there was no property acquired?
No, they were not.
They simply represented the interest of the ex-president?
I believe so, because they had a closed-door meeting for a long time before they came out to us.
So in other words, you were looking to replace Euro-African Group. That's why you brought them. They were an alternative to Euro-African Group.
Who brought them?
You represented government interests. That's why I classify you in that you.
Yeah, we represented government, and we were told that they were going to replace the Euro-African Group.
You went ahead and signed a contract.
Sorry?
You went ahead and signed a contract.
Yeah.
While the exclusivity with Eagle was still going on.
The exclusivity was still going on.
Why did you sign a contract?
He
a
said
parallel contract.
He said that he was going to deal with them, and that is, he was going to terminate the contract with them.
But he didn't terminate with Eagle.
What I know is when I was moved from, a few months or so, when I was moved from office of the president, they terminated the contract.
They couldn't.
They terminated the contract, the Eagle company, and then later reversed.
They reinstated.
They reinstated them.
But the contract you signed with CONAPRO.
Yes, sir.
What was the crux of the contract?
What was the crux?
Yes.
For them to supply us, fuel, and the quantity that was required was needed, and the quality, they were able to provide it at a lower cost.
So the GFFI was just a sidekick, a motivation?
Yeah, it was when that, it was a side thing. It was when this issue with the fuel thing didn't work out, that's when they resort to GFFI. And they were also into mining. And I think that I'm not, I didn't know the details, but they were into mining with the president. minerals.
So what I'm trying to understand,
Yeah.
these are a group of individuals who didn't bring in a dollar, who didn't acquire any property, and yet sued you for breach of contract. Where was the breach? Was it in your failure to award them the exclusivity?
No, I think the breach, there was this gentleman's agreement that we shelve it until after that exclusivity is done, and then they would be called back to renegotiate the contract. Mm-hmm. So when this issue of money, proof, for them to prove that they have paid their dues, their share, when that came up, that is when they left and then brought that issue back and tried to sue government to get something out of it.
They did get something.
Yes, I understand.
Because the office of the president led a team of parastatals and civil servants to negotiate a contract without proper advice. So was there anybody at the Ministry of Finance or Economic Affairs who vetted the contract to tell you the pitfalls? Was there, apart from the legal advice? I think you said you
apart from the legal advice.
Yes, but what you needed was technical investment advice. Who provided that?
They were there, and it was passed around at that meeting to look at everything. And then I believe they gave it the nod to go ahead, because it was all about supplying the quantity and the quality of fuel that was needed.
Okay. So you talked about the price, the differentials. You said Conapro was able to give better pricing than Eagle, or that was the assumption. But later on, it was found out that Eagle was still good.
Yeah.
So how did you arrive at those decisions? Did somebody again at the ministry
I
provide
think
you the data?
The Ministry of Finance provided that table.
Are you sure it was based on?
Yes, it was Finance Ministry, probably together with GNPC.
It wasn't based on the ex-president's back and forth change of mind regarding decisions. I don't believe that contract had anything to do with data or pricing.
At some point, there was this data that was exchanged. At some point, yes, I can say that there was this comparison that was made. And yes, the president and the brother, they were interested in these people securing the contract. That is a fact.
So why did Eagle end up getting a renewal?
Why did Eagle end up
getting a renewal and Conapro got a breach?
Yeah, I think that was Eagle's relationship with the president, and also probably the fact that at some point I heard the president telling Ansu that these people, my Eagle, sometimes pre-finance, these vessels or this fuel supply, and then they were later paid. Probably maybe those arrangements, that he has with, and these people were not able to, to provide that. Probably that may be another factor, and also, their relationship. But it was terminated, and then later reissued.
It was more about relationship.
I can say that that was part of it, and also probably the fact that they were able. That is what was available, a better price than what these people were offering. That's a problem. But there might be factors, more than one.
Thank you. No further questions.
All right, I'll move on to something else. Mr. Ba, we move on to the Ferris, Aljamdo and Kansala, Galia Holdings.
Yes.
Joint venture with Galia Holdings.
Yes.
I'll show you Exhibit SC35, which was the joint venture agreement that was signed in Greece on a mission to Greece.
Yeah.
I believe you were part of that mission.
Of the signature?
Yes.
That it was signed?
Yes. Were you?
I traveled to Greece once. That was the first trip that went there.
The exhibits have not
I was not part of this trip that signed the contract.
All right.
And this is the 5th of March trip. I went to Greece on the 2nd of February. And that was, and that was the first trip.
The same year.
Sorry.
You said it was the 5th of March trip. What year? What year?
2011.
So
That's when this contract was, I think, signed or prepared.
You went.
But I went to Greece on the 2nd of February, or on the 1st of February. That was the first trip that I undertook as SG, heading that delegation at the invitation of the Greek partners.
Okay, let's start from the beginning. The testimony before this commission indicates that the Office of the President, this was another project of the Office of the President, into which other institutions were drawn and were more or less compelled to invest.
Right.
I would like you to explain to the commission the genesis of this joint venture.
Very well, ma'am. There were a group of potential investors, so-called investors from Greece, I think introduced by our consulate in Jeddah to the office of the president through one Mr. Kyriakos.
Who was the consulate in Jeddah?
Yeah, it was Mr. Bojang, I think, Mustafa.
Mr.?
Bojang.
What was his first name?
Mustafa.
Mustafa Bojang. You can go on.
When they came in, they went to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and at the time it was Dr. Tangara, and audience was sought, and they met with the president. I believe they were also accompanied by our honorary consul in Greece. I can't remember the name. It's Thanos was our honorary consul there. So they came in and met with the president. And the crux of that meeting was they have vast experience in shipping, in ferrying, in matters surrounding the sea. And they are very much interested in our ferry services. And I think that was spearheaded by Mr. Kyriakos, who brought these people in. So the ferry services at that time were poor. At that time, there were a lot of problems in the machines were failing, and I personally knew about that, experienced it, because I crossed to Nyomi every Friday and then returned on Sundays. So the conditions were appalling. So these people came in and they said they want to provide a facelift to the ferry services. Because I think Kyriakos was here for a while and was, also experienced, the services. So they said they were ready to invest where these investors would take over the ferry services. Not, they would just take the part dealing with the ferry services in partnership with government at the management level, at the operations level, to make it profitable and also efficient in terms of providing vessels or ferries that would be able to accommodate the needs, the capacity in terms of vehicles and also in terms of passengers. So the president, was attracted to that, and he believed that it was his duty to ensure that better services were provided, and he thought that this would bring that solution to our plight. So they were asked after leaving the office of the president to go to GPA.
Sorry, you were at the meeting, their meeting with the president. It would appear from your testimony.
Yes, when they were at meeting with the president, yes, I was there, witnessing what transpired. So after the meeting, and Minister Tanga was also there, Foreign Affairs, and probably some other ministers. Works, maybe, I don't know who was there, but anything relating to ferries, were invited, and some other ministers. So after that, they were asked to go and meet with officials of GPA, and they met with them, and then they came back. I was not I didn't accompany them to GPA, but Dr. Tangara did. When they came back, they offered an invitation to officials of the Gambia government to go and visit them, visit their location, see what type of business they do, and see what types of ferries they are talking about. And then we'll also have the opportunity to discuss the partnership arrangements and all that. And that offer was accepted, and instructions were given for a delegation, to go and travel to Greece. And I was asked to head that delegation, which comprised our ambassador to Spain, Mr. Ture Keba, our ambassador to Spain, the honorary consul in Jeddah, and Mr. Hali Gai at the GPA, and that one Mr. Mane, I think Keba Mane, was an engineer or some sort of technical person, to be part of that trip. And that was upon the invitation of these Greek partners, Galanakis, Mr. Galanakis, who headed that company. So the trip was effected.
Let me just ask, who determined the composition of the delegation?
Normally, we look at the invitation and the purpose of the trip. And once, for example, in this case, it's about the ferries, it's about maritime issues. We had to bring in, GPA people, GPA guys.
You're saying that you determined then, as Secretary General, you determined the composition. Your office determined.
Apart from the president saying that you head the delegation, sometimes he will say, let this person or let this minister or let this official be part of the delegation. But most of the time it's probably the office of the Secretary General in consultations that would decide the composition of the delegation.
So in this case, it was your office that determined the composition?
It was our office, yes, sir. Ma'am.
How was this Kebamane identified?
Kebamane, how was he identified? By
Yes.
the GPA. Probably through Hadigayo. It was by the GPA people. Because I didn't know Keba. But I believe Mr. Guy identified him.
So you went to Greece?
Sorry?
You said you went to Greece?
Yes, we went to Greece.
Yes. What happened in Greece? As you know, we ended up having 2 expensive pieces of machinery that haven't operated. So we would like to understand what happened in Greece and how this could happen. We ended up with 2 expensive.
Well, I can only talk about my
Yes.
trip, and there were subsequent trips that went there. I was not part of those people that signed the contract. I was not part of those people that probably had the final negotiations on what to pay and what not to pay.
Yes. Tell us about that first trip, where you had presumably technical people to look at the ferries.
Yeah,
what happened? Yes.
I forgot to mention that Office of the President was also represented by the Permanent Secretary too, then Mustafa Yabo.
He went on the trip in
yes,
addition
he went
to
on
yourself.
the trip too. Yeah, he was the
Okay.
Permanent Secretary, and we arrived in Athens on the 2nd of February, 2011. Later, the delegation with our Greek partners, we traveled to a place called Rio. Rio is where the vessels are located. This visit was meant to ascertain the condition of the 2 vessels and their suitability for operations. We went and then they showed us the vessels and downstairs where the engines were, the machines were, up where the seating arrangements were, and the space that was available, for this type of business here in Banjul Bara. A conducted tour was facilitated, and questions were asked, by the delegation on various, issues surrounding the vessels, and the engines were started and tested also in front of us. And there was data relating to the life of the vessels were collected.
The?
Data that related to the life of the vessel was provided, and it was given for the technical department, for the technical guys to review them, those at GPA. It was observed there that the vessel had the capacity that if deployed here in Banjul Bara, could immediately address the existing demand in terms of vehicles and,
Who observed that?
the delegation. The
Oh,
delegation. Yes.
Okay.
And it was observed also that there needed to be a facelift of the vessels, like the coffee bar area, the passenger area in terms of the seating and the canopy that was, providing shade, and the painting of the body.
Are you talking about both vessels or one vessel?
Both vessels.
You inspected both vessels.
Yeah, we inspected both vessels.
Was it a dry dock or was it in the water?
No, I think one was a dry dock and the other one was just floating there.
Mr. Kebamane stated that the documentation of the vessel was not available, and he did ask for it. Do you recollect anything about this? In terms of its registration, its the normal documentation that accompanies vessels of this nature. was available, but was in Greek, and he asked that it be translated, or he was promised that it would be translated and provided.
No, I wasn't aware whether it was provided to him.
Okay. All right, go on.
Okay.
Sorry. We'll rise now, and we'll be back at 12 noon.